I'd like to thank Nikon for the birthday present today. It's the release of the Nikon Z9 Firmware 5.0, and how they knew it was my birthday, I don't know, but I'll take it. They also sent me this thing in the mail, which I think they sent to all Nikon professional services people, but it's a nice little book and some priority stickers to mail things to them for cleaning, which I don't do. If you haven't already, you should check out my cleaning video on how I clean my sensor for this camera and all my cameras for the last 10 years. But there are some good features in the new update that I'd like to go over. Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick. During the installation process, I discovered there's a little bit of a gotcha, and that the firmware has to be installed twice. I will go over that in the install section, so if you want to wait till then, great. If you're not, there's a link below that will send you right to that chapter. So let's do that. Also, stick with me till the end and I'll show you the process for updating the Nikon camera, as well as the lens and any other accessories you have attached to it. If you already know how to do that, then great. If you don't, I'll put it at the end and you can get a quick tutorial on how to update your camera and all of its different parts, including lenses and other accessories. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the ones that are the most important to me. One of the silliest things, and the one that I find to be most helpful right off of the bat for me, is the ability to change the border width of the focus point. I constantly lose where that is when I'm out taking pictures at gymnastic events or birds in flight or whatever the case may be. And having a slightly bigger border is really going to help me out. I will show you how to change that, and then also determining which one I'm going to use the most will be something I'll take some time to figure out. But I'm going to start off with 2 and then go from there. Okay, so we're going to start here in the custom settings menu, which is the pencil icon on the left. We're going to go down to A, focus. In the A menu, we're going to go down to A11, select focus point display, and then go down to the very bottom where it says focus point border width. It's currently set to 1, which is this tiny border here. And we're going to go back and change this to 2. And you can see it's got a little bigger. And then we're going to do finally 3, and you can see it's quite large at this point on the screen. I think that might be a bit much. I'm going to start with 2. So one of the big updates to the 5.0 firmware is auto capture updates. So auto capture, in case you don't use that, is a bit like the old school focus traps, where you would set the camera for a certain distance, and then if something came into that point, and the camera considered it to be in focus, it would take the picture of whatever it was. It didn't really matter. Auto capture is very similar, except for it also allows you to customize your focus for specific items, pets, birds, people, and now airplanes. So if your camera is set up to capture, auto capture any of those items, then it will take those pictures, and it doesn't really matter how far away it is. So it doesn't have to be in a specific area to capture that focus. It'll adjust and capture that picture of that thing where it is. So if you have if you're a plane spotter and you have a plane going across the scene, it'll keep tracking that across the screen, the scene, and keeping it in focus. I don't use that much. I don't really know where that would be helpful for me at all. I do have some birds that tend to nest in a tree in my backyard, and if I set it up to capture them as they're flying in, they don't tend to do that when I'm standing there. So if just the camera was there, And I set it up for bird and auto capture. When they came in, it would take pictures. But typically I don't, so that's not something that's wildly used for me. Another very useful item for me is high frequency flicker reduction has been updated, and now you have certain presets that you can set for taking pictures in low light situations or in artificial light situations. That is going to be helpful for me. I tend to take a lot of pictures in low light areas at gymnastics events, and I have a video on how to get quality pictures with high ISO numbers with the Z9, and I'll link that in the description and then up above. Feel free to take a look at that if you often find yourself in low light situations. Low light flicker is LEDs and complex fluorescent bulbs will flicker based on the AC current that's coming through it, and it's different in the US than it is in Europe. And we will see that flicker in the camera. So now it tries to take care of that automatically, but now you have the ability to put in a couple presets to match the frequency of the event that's happening or the lighting that you're in, and try to reduce those flickering in the camera. There is a new C15 frames per second capture mode that is only in JPEG, mind you. 15 frames per second existed in RAW already, so not very useful for me, but for some it might be. I only shoot in RAW, and if you don't, there are some good reasons to do so. If you're interested in a video on why and the technical reasons behind that, put a comment below and I'll put together a video if I get. Okay, so there are also some portrait adjustments in the new firmware, some skin smoothing, and some warming up of the JPEGs. And I don't use those per se much. Again, like I said, I shoot in RAW, but the picture that you see on the back of the screen is a JPEG representation of the RAW image that the camera takes. So those can be useful. I don't use them, and I don't really have time to be doing that in the camera when I'm taking pictures. So your results may vary, and whether that's important to you is another matter. Another big update that I find useful is the separation between the shooting banks for video and images. Before, you would have to set up your shooting banks, and it would be for video and or pictures, and now those banks are separated, so that's good. Face priority and playback, that's a nice new feature. So now you also have the ability to connect via SnapBridge. I'm not a big fan of SnapBridge. I have a lot of problems with it, and a lot of it has to do with the camera wanting to use Wi-Fi when it's trying to connect, or Bluetooth when it's trying to connect to the camera, and it's using the whole connection. Now with the new firmware update, you should be able to do both, but I haven't used it in practice, so I really can't say how effective it is. We'll see. So another nice feature is face priority and playback. So when you're looking at the images on the back of the screen and you're zoomed in a little bit to those images, it will now try to prioritize towards face if you have that set. All right, let's get into how to update the firmware and what steps you need to take. Okay, so I noticed during the install that there is actually a two-step process to this install. The first process is to update the firmware, which we'll go through now, and then the second process to update it again. The reason why it's a two-step process and you don't need to download any extra files is because you need to update the firmware to be able to get to a certain point in the firmware to be able to update the second half of the firmware, which has to do with GPS coordinate systems. Okay, the first step in this process is go to the Nikon Z9 firmware update page. You can just Google Z9 firmware 5.0 and it'll take you right to this page. Click on the free download at the bottom, and it'll take you to the Nikon Z9 page. Click on Firmware. You'll want to go down to the 5.0, click on that, and then pick Windows or Mac. In this particular case, it's going to allow you to download the bin file. Some cases it lets you download the executable exe. The executable exe will just unzip the bin file. So if you see an exe, just double click on that. If you see a bin file, you're good to go. In this particular case, it's just going to be the bin file. You can go through the changes that were made and see the full list of all the changes that are available in the new firmware. You can see updates as well as fixes. But we're just going to go down to the bottom, click accept, and then download. Also, while you're here on this page, you can search for any other firmwares you might need. I am going to look to see if the Plena, the 135, has any updates, as well as any other lenses or teleconverters that I have that I might want to update at this point in time. Okay, go to your download folders, copy the bin file that came that you downloaded, go to your Nikon disk and paste it right at the top level. This is my card from my Nikon Z9. And then take that out of your computer and insert it back into your camera. Okay, so real quick, I wanted to show you my camera and its setup at the moment so that I can show you how to update more than just the camera. You can see I have the camera here, the 2x teleconverter, and the new 100 to 400 Z lens. And when we look into the menu, you'll see that here on the top, you'll see the C, that stands for camera, the LF stands for your lens, and the TC stands for the teleconverter. You can see what firmware level all of them are at, and you can put all of their new firmwares onto the same drive or any other lens or any other accessory you have and update them one at a time like this. Just to take the mystery out of how to update those other things. And once you go into the update process, you can see what's happening here. This is saying we are updating the C, which is camera, from the current 4.1 to the new 5.0. Okay, the update process can take several minutes, so just bear with it. Please make sure you have a fully charged battery when you do this. You don't want it to die midway through. All right, you'll notice that when we go back in, you can see that the camera is now updated to the most recent level. The lens is updated to the most recent level, and now we have this G. This is the tricky part that we talked about at the beginning. That G actually stands for the GPS coordinates that need to be updated, but it could also just be general accessories. Here it means a GPS. So the camera has been updated to 5.0, and the G indicates that we're at 0.07. And when we update again, you'll see that that'll change to 0.17. Okay, and finally, after updating it with the same file, you don't need to download anything else. You'll see that now the current versions are 5.0 for the camera and 1.7 for the G. And we are done. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe. I appreciate it.